Good afternoon. My name is Elena Dunn. I am the Director of Recruitment at the University of Redlands for graduate and professional enrollment. And we are here today to talk about outcomes. I'd like to share with you an example of essentially a case study we did here at Redlands, and a way that we used LinkedIn to create some outcomes information that we hadn't had previously. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why this was important. I'm going to talk to you about the process we use to extract data from LinkedIn. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how we used this and how we might find it useful in the future and what else we need to do to really have the data that's going to be important to us in the future. So a brief history. The University of Redlands is more than 100 years old. We're a small liberal arts school in Southern California. But we have been providing education for business students, non-traditional business students, for more than 40 years. Unfortunately, in all of that time, we've never collected outcomes information. And so up until this point, we've been relying on anecdotal evidence to really try and sell students on the school and to suggest that the investment in this education is worthwhile. We have not had any information about what our alumni do, where they're employed, or really if this was a worthwhile investment from a data standpoint. Why is this important? So first of all, it's important because we're in Southern California. And so a quick count shows about 36 MBA programs in about a 100-mile radius. This means that the market is swamped with MBA programs, and that we are not unique in providing an MBA, nor are we unique in how we provide it, which is designed for working professionals with evening courses, one night a week, etc. However, that is not enough of a differentiator for most of our students. And we've been unable to say in other ways, why is this a worthwhile investment? Why would you choose our program over University of Laverne's or Pepperdine's or Cal Baptist? So that's the first thing that's really the most pressing for our day-to-day business. However, I think it's important to recognize that the nation as a whole is having this discussion. So we saw in the last 2 years, the White House's College Scorecard Initiative, flawed as it may be, really raised the conversation of what is the investment given the high cost of college, and is it a worthwhile investment? We're also starting to see the emergence of rankings based on outcomes data. So 3 main players would be The Economist, Payscale.com, and the Brookings Institution, all of which do their rankings with outcomes data. And so this image you're seeing is from the Brookings Institution, where they're really talking about what do we expect a student's salary might be, and then what is their actual salary, and can we say that their college education allowed them to have that increase or decrease, as it were? Can we say that that investment had an ROI higher than expected? So these are the conversations that are already happening. And so institutions like Redlands can either get on board and arm ourselves with this information to be able to compete, or we can be left behind. My argument is we should get on board. So what do? So we essentially hijacked a piece of software called Live Alumni. And Live Alumni was purchased by our alumni office really for fundraising purposes, because our alumni office did not, like us, have really comprehensive data on what our alumni are doing or where they are. So what it allows you to do is essentially go in to LinkedIn and extract any publicly available information. And so I asked for any student in LinkedIn connected to our School of Business. And what you get is essentially what you see on the screen, which is an Excel document with line items. And a certain individual will have multiple line items, as you see, because each time the person has a new job, changes position, has a new volunteer experience, that line item is added. So it's a very long document. It can be a little bit tricky to navigate and really make sense of as it is. So what I did in order to make this more usable was to turn that document into an Access database and to also connect it through Access to the information we had in our student information system. so that I could not just have the information provided by LinkedIn, but have things like graduation date, formal program of study, those sorts of things. And so this database allows us to quickly go in and refine information so that we can say, show me all undergraduates who left us or graduated in 1995, for example. That's one of the listings you see here. So this made it much easier for me to get my hands around the data, and it allows us to continue to add data later on as we get new entries, of course, because people are always adding LinkedIn profiles. Now, the really exciting thing is that we were then able to use this to get some data, aggregate data that we've never had before. And the three main ones were current employer and position, fields of employment, and then promotion or new position. So I'll go through and show you what that looked like, and then we'll talk a little bit about how we'll use this data. So the first is a simple list of current employment, and I'm just using MBAs for example. We did do them for all of our academic programs, but current employment for recent School of Business MBA graduates. And we really wanted it to be recent because that's really the question that a lot of students have is, okay, maybe I can get a new job 20 years from now, but for our student population, we really know that these are people who are looking to make changes sooner rather than later. So what can we show them in terms of positions that our real graduates have that can be inspirational and aspirational for them? So, a basic list of who, what, and where, and again, this is public information, so we felt comfortable extracting this and using this in our various documents and on our website. Next, we again aggregated this based on industry. And so you can see how our MBA graduates break out based on the industry. And this is something I selected. This is not LinkedIn industries. So you could do it however you like and be as granular or not as you'd be interested in. But to me, what this really says is that our graduates are incredibly diverse. They are using their degrees in a wide range of fields. These are not all folks who end up working in finance. They're not all corporate folks. They really do span the entire range of options. And so again, this to me is very inspirational, that a student can come to us, have an interest, have a passion they want to follow, and we can say, yes, you can do it, and here's the evidence. And of course, some folks are simply looking to stay in their current field and are looking for advancement within that field. Well, we have that as well. And then finally, this was probably the most challenging thing to do, and that it was very time consuming, but I think really one of the most useful elements of this research which was to look at, based on LinkedIn and how they organize their information, what percentage of our graduates got a job, a new job, or a promotion within a year of graduation or while they were still enrolled. So essentially what you have to do is you have to look at that original spreadsheet, you organize it by person and then by date of employment, and you go through and you identify which folks had a new job or a promotion while they were enrolled or within a year of graduation. And I just highlighted them so I could count them later. But we found 52% of our graduates received a promotion or found a new job within a year of graduation. This is really exciting information because this really speaks to ROI. Now, I think it's an important side note to point out that this information needs to be provided contextually, right? Were this group of students first-time freshmen or first-time seniors graduating in a traditional program, 52% is actually not a great number. But for our students, the vast majority of which are already employed, this is actually a great number because the other 48% based on LinkedIn were almost all already employed and simply chose to stay in the position that they were in. So again, context is really important when providing this sort of information. But this, I think, really is something we can sit down with and say, let's talk about how you didn't even need to get out of the program before students were able to find new options. So this was exceptionally helpful. So why is this helpful? So for me, my job really is about website, publications, forward-facing things. And so what this has allowed me to do is to pair what we were already doing, which was qualitative storytelling, with quantitative pieces. And to me, they're just different legs of the same stool, right? So this really has allowed us to say, let me tell you the story of one individual, or in this example that you see on the screen, a story of one of our study abroad programs, and to pair that with evidence to say, yes, your investment is going to be useful. You don't just have to trust me that I'm telling you it's useful. We no longer simply have to rely on averages. So the wonderful information put out by GMAT is very useful, but this is real, this is Redlands, this is specific. So I really think that in the future, when we're meeting with people or prospective students, or they're coming to our website, we can tell them, yes, this is a worthwhile investment. Finally, I think it's important to point out a few limitations or cautions. First is that all this information is self-reported. And so someone could say they went to Redlands, someone could say they got a specific degree when they may not have. So I think it's very wise to double check and make sure that the information that the people on LinkedIn are provided can be confirmed in your student data system. If you don't have a good way to link those, it is going to be time consuming to check, but I think well worth it so that you don't get caught up in providing information that is inaccurate. Secondly, and related, LinkedIn users are self-selected. Of course, not anyone is required to have a LinkedIn account. And so that may mean that you find a positive bias in your data. People who are more successful may be more likely to have LinkedIn accounts. Now, I will say, as a counter argument to that we compared the data we got from LinkedIn to the data we got from the most recent HEAD survey. And we found actually that that job placement rate for the HEAD survey was much higher than the job placement rate for LinkedIn. So it could be a positive bias, although in this other case it was a negative bias. I will also say that if you want really well-rounded data, live alumni could be a little bit limiting. And so what I did, in addition to actually pulling data from live alumni, I went through and just searched for folks that perhaps that initial sweep didn't catch. And I found quite a few. A lot of that can be related to the fact that people just type in their own degree title. So I may have searched MBA, but the person may have put Master's of Business Administration or any other combination of degree title. So if you want a robust listing, especially for small programs, for us that was our Master's of Science and Information Technology. There were maybe 8 folks who came up with that degree. There were a lot more graduates, and I was able to find at least 3 or 4 times that just manually searching. So it does take time, but it's well worth it. I would say that I also believe that even though we have this data, and it's going to be very helpful, we still need a survey of graduates, again, to address some of this positive bias issue, but also to get at some of the things that are not provided by LinkedIn. So satisfaction with the program, in what way do you use these skills that you've learned in your degree and your work, salary information, that's very important. So I'm hopeful that in the next year we will actually have an alumni survey, and it will really only be an additional benefit. We can compare data, we can use both, but again, it just strengthens our foundation of providing why this is a good education and why it's a worthwhile investment. And then lastly, I think it's important to point out that this is likely most helpful for business fields. So as an example, I did pull this same data for our School of Education graduates and found that by and large, the results were much thinner. So many fewer of our education graduates had LinkedIn profiles. So I would say you probably find that in other fields as well, outside of business, liberal arts, perhaps social sciences. So this might be not as useful for folks in other fields, however, still worth perhaps the small investment to make it happen. So that's what we did. That is our case study. We're going to begin to use this information in our next round of brochures, as well as on our website. And I'm very hopeful that this will continue to strengthen our position within our industry and within Southern California. That's my information. Feel free to email me if you have any questions. I do thank you for your time. I'm sure you have plenty of these to review. And hopefully I will see you in a few months in Clearwater.